Should you fake interest again? The same thing. No. Even if it's hard to listen to, even if it goes against every fiber of your being, open up your mind and listen to the other side. If nothing else, it will help you maybe come up with excellent counter arguments. So that's really, really important. So that's pretty much my stuff on ethics. I'll let you read the book, but at the end of the day, I want you to realize that part of being an effective speaker is you want people to like you and see you as credible. And you can't, and then to do that, you gotta respect your audience or your readers enough to not hide stuff from them, and not just plagiarize stuff, but also as a reader or an audience member, you gotta respect the speaker or the writer enough to be willing to open up your mind. So that's stuff on ethics. Next, chapter 6. Skipping 5 because we don't have time to listen, even though I just talked about listening, but you can read it if you want to. But it's not really part of the student learning objectives or outcomes. Okay, talking about a sea of random people. If you can see that. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Lots of stuff to think about here. One of the most important things to think about is that, and I think I mentioned it the other day, particularly when we were talking about leadership, the other day being yesterday. By the way, here's my Hardy's cup. Same one. Eat it like you mean it. Iced tea like you mean it. You know the reason why I'm teaching this class? Because I did not win. Too bad. The other time I did win like $5. That was pretty cool. So you're always thinking about your audience. You always want to sort of tailor your message, custom fit, whatever you want to call it. And so we're always, no matter what the situation, whether we are writing or we are speaking, I would argue, we're thinking about who are we writing or speaking to, because we want to reach those specific people. And so the book talks about lots of different stuff that I'll let you read. It talks about audience analysis and always being audience-centered. And that's just the idea that you're always thinking about your audience in the entire process, coming up with a topic to, whatever. You're always thinking about the audience. Going through the canons of rhetoric and thinking about how to utilize them in an effective way, always thinking about your audience. And I'll let you sort of read the stuff about audience psychology. But some of the things I do want to highlight here is I do really like this idea of the custom fit on page 38. Audience members like to feel that the speaker recognizes them as unique individuals. You can do this by making positive references to the place where you are speaking and the group to whom you are addressing your comments. Here at Columbia College, we are all about leadership. I would like to talk, something like that. And then I really like the idea also about being authentic on page 40, because even though you're customizing your message or targeting it, doesn't mean that you're pandering. So you're still, you're still you, you're still your authentic you. You just oftentimes want to establish common ground in certain ways with your audience, knowing who your audience is. So, really everything, as I say, remember solid gold, number 2. I love the solid gold dancers. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a solid gold dancer. I just thought I looked sexy in the gold, whatever they wore, glitter. But in any case, I do like that stuff, the checklist, respond to, there's so many good things in here. But what I want to focus in on, well, is also this idea that folks are egocentric, which is basically what's in it for me. So even when you're talking about leadership, what can individual people in this in this audience, or when somebody's reading a paper, what can I get from this? What can I learn from this? What's the takeaway? And also another thing, remember that audiences are not homogeneous, which basically means we always have a bunch of diversity within an audience. Actually, I'm doing this right now while I think President Obama is speaking in Dallas. I should be watching that instead. But no, I need to teach y'all up. Teach y'all on up on how to speak gooder. Okay. So you need to understand that you're always going to have multiple perspectives within a given audience. Big picture, just always think, who's in my audience? Who's there? How can I reach them? How can I create common ground with them? And so, okay. One of the things to think about, because the book talks about, every book that talks about audience analysis always talks about issues of demographics, and target audience. And there's always, there are more new stuff like geographics and psychographics. But most folks, just focus on demographics. And they can be problematic, right? Because you're already working off stereotypes. But the idea here is that you want to consider, okay, who's out there? How old are they? Might that impact how you want to craft the message? I don't know. Got to think about it. What's their ethnic or cultural background? How does that impact how you want to craft your message? I don't know, but you got to think about it. Socioeconomic status. Does that have a bearing? I don't know, but you got to think about it. Religion. Is everybody going to have the same religion? Probably not. How's that going to impact your message? You got to think about it. Political affiliation. Are you going to have different political views in your audiences? Probably. How do you deal with that? Got to think about that. Common ground. What's the common ground? Gender. Is that going to make a difference in how you craft your speech? Maybe. How? You got to think about it. There's always more, but the point is, and there's no magic here. It's no magic strategies per se. It's just you're always thinking about this. Who's there? And then how can I reach them in light of how they might perceive the world? So that's when you start trying not to be ethnocentric and trying to really think about how others might see the world so you can sort of reach them. Another thing we always think about also, apart from demographics, is sort of the size or the situational constraints. How many people are in the audience? The famous I Have a Dream speech. Thousands and thousands of people there. And it was hot. One of the reasons why they decided to make it a very quick speech, even though it was a long, all-day thing. So the size of the audience, how many people are there? What's the physical setting? Have you thought about the audience, are they interested in being there in the first place, or do they have to go? What do they know about your topic, and how is that going to impact what you say? What is their attitude toward the topic? What is their attitude toward you? That's a disposition to speaker or disposition to the occasion. Ideally, I would like to make our situations like fun, but I know that you have to be there. But in any case, so other things to sort of think about when you're out in the real world. Are you going to give, if it's Friday afternoon and folks are trying to get home or to go eat, or you want to bring your workers together and give a 2-hour speech? Probably not. People really shouldn't even have meetings Friday afternoon, but we have faculty meetings every Friday afternoon or every month. 1 o'clock, it's a terrible time. Now, why do we think about the audience? And I've already sort of implied this, but we're always wanting to identify with them. So that idea of identification perhaps is the most important thing to me in this entire chapter. Page 39, identification. A sense of commonality, a sense of we-ness. Use eye contact and body movements to include the audience in your message if you're speaking. Relate a relevant personal story, emphasize a shared role, focus on areas of agreement, otherwise stress mutual bonds. Reach out and touch someone, not literally, but figuratively. Common ground, build common ground. That's so important. And That's the stuff on audience. You're always thinking about your audience, always trying to build common ground with any informative speaking, persuasive speaking, informative writing, persuasive writing. How do you reach and create a sense of commonality with folks? That's important. Okay, moving right along. Chapter 7. Got my 80s. I don't know. You probably can't hear that, can you? Hey, Finn, what you doing? He's laying in front of the. He's watching doggy TV, which means the window is open. Well, not the window, the screen door. You know what I'm talking about. What you talking about, Willis? Oh, I've missed it. Back to, thank you. It all comes down to, when you think of audience analysis, different strokes. There are different strokes for different folks. And you have to understand those strokes if you're going to reach them. That's what I'm talking about, Willis. Okay. Chapter 7 is all about specific purpose, thesis, and stuff like that. I'll hit the high points here. It's tragic, isn't it? I think pretty much everybody on that show had some sort of horrible problem, such as the sort of the problems with celebrity, I suppose. I never desired to be a celebrity. I don't want to be a celebrity, even though, with these videos on the YouTube sensation. That's a joke. Okay. One of the things that it talks about is, how do I pick a topic? Where do I begin? Usually in the real world, topics are thrust upon us. We don't really, nobody really, hey, if somebody knocks on your door, would you come speak to a random group of people? And you can speak whatever you want to talk about. Maybe in certain situations. But, so remember, I'm assigning you things. And so for this first speech, for instance, you are speaking again about a political leader. But there's some ideas here. So if you're trying to figure out who to speak on for this very first speech, maybe somebody you already know a little bit about, maybe somebody you don't know about but you've heard about and want to learn more about. But you shouldn't go about this selfishly. That is, as I just talked about, you have to think about your audience. Are there certain people you think your audience might want to hear about? And some of these things might be, we all are here in South Carolina. Maybe somebody's from South Carolina, or somebody who has ties to Columbia College. What is the common ground? What is the link? I'm not just saying that you have to do that. I'm just saying it's one mode of audience analysis and trying to reach the audience. And also, never do boring stuff. I hate the usual suspects. You be novel, both with the persuasive and the informative. Okay, now the book talks about, it has all this idea about brainstorming and everything like that. You know what brainstorms are? It's like, lightning. Mind mapping. There's Alaska. There's the bridge to nowhere. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so oftentimes folks talk about purposes and everything like that, and I am going to ask you, when I give you an example of an outline, to think in terms of your purpose and your thesis and everything like that. I'm going to talk about what I call a speech plan here in a second. You don't have to do that. It's not required. It's just something that you can do as you're sort of thinking through how to organize your speeches. But the general purpose is sort of a no-brainer. So in this first speech, for instance, you're trying to inform the audience. Now, the specific purpose is much more narrowed, right? And so, as I've said already, I don't want this speech, this first speech, to be a big biography of, your person. I want it to be focused. So you got to figure out how to focus, and part of that comes from research. But some things to think about to help you focus, and that is you want to make sure that you have a statement, like a